Well, let's go to Switzerland next. A peace summit underway right now in the Swiss resort above Lake Lucerne, aimed at, in principle, ending the war in Ukraine. But with Russia, the chief belligerent, not there, more realistic immediate goal seems to be to try to map out the first steps towards peace. China, another key player, isn't attending either, but around 90 countries have sent high-level delegations. Let's bring in Gulliver Cragg. Let's go to our correspondent in Kyiv. Gulliver, reading the room right now and looking at what's going on, has anything significant happened so far? How are you seeing this?
Well, all we've had so far really has been some bilateral meetings between Volodymyr Zelensky and guests who arrived earlier, and then the ceremony of welcoming all the guests, which was about an hour ago. Looking at the parade of heads of state and heads of government arriving, I actually came to the conclusion that the Ukrainians are going to be able to call this a success, because it is not often that you get 56 heads of state and government together in one place, 30 other countries represented at ministerial level. Yes, the Chinese snubbed it. Indonesia has only sent an ambassador. Brazil also only represented by its ambassador to Switzerland. India, though, in the end did decide to take part at a lower level, but sent a high-ranking Foreign Office official there from India. And you've got presidents from Africa, Ivory Coast, Libya, Kenya, all represented at the highest level, and South America, in particular Javier Milei, the Argentine president. Volodymyr Zelensky went to his inauguration in Argentina recently. When he arrived, there was a big hug between the two men. It was only confirmed at the last minute that he would actually be able to make it. And so all of this means that I think that although it's fallen short of what they were hoping for, the Ukrainians, because they really wanted Chinese participation, they're still going to be able to say it's a success. But what we're hearing is that the communique that will be announced tomorrow is still under preparation. It's not a done deal, and there are really going to be some tough negotiations tomorrow, and a lot will depend on what the countries are all able to agree on. It's possible that not everyone will sign it.
Success, Gulliver. You obviously don't talk about success in terms of a plan towards peace, but a success of perhaps the optics of those who are there willing to hear out President Zelensky.
The Ukrainians have been very clear that this is an inaugural summit, that this is a first step. They've been dialing down their ambitions in recent days as well, placing the emphasis on the fact that they're going to talk first of all about the least controversial aspect of Volodymyr Zelensky's peace plan, which are return of Ukrainian prisoners and Ukrainian children who've been abducted, nuclear safety. 3 nuclear power plants in Ukraine are operational. 1 is not operational and under Russian occupation. Huge fears about those. And also food exports, making sure that Ukraine's able to keep supplies flowing out from its ports. Those are likely to be things that people can agree on. What's more controversial is Volodymyr Zelensky's insistence that all Russian forces must leave Ukraine and return to the 1991 borders. And there his task is trying to convince a skeptical world that that is still a realistically achievable goal. The Ukrainians, I believe, think it is. I think, though, they probably will be prepared to negotiate at some point in the future going forward, but definitely not on the basis of what Vladimir Putin announced yesterday, which is Ukraine not just accepting Russian control over the parts of the country it already controls, but ceding significant amounts of more territory, including huge cities like Zaporizhzhia, to Russia. That's absolutely, obviously unacceptable. Vladimir Putin also yesterday denied ever having tried to take Kyiv, which is obviously completely untrue. So I think that Vladimir Putin's statements yesterday actually probably helped the Ukrainians in their argument that they were right not to invite Russia to this inaugural summit, because Russia's clearly not prepared to negotiate at this stage on any kind of serious basis.
It's interesting, just finally, Gulliver, a number of delegations, including India's delegation, talking to press about, they're not taking on all of these, the 10-point plan of Ukraine. They are there to listen. I think you mentioned one of the issues, food security being big to them, nuclear security. And I think for Ukraine as well, the idea of the return of children transferred from Ukraine to Russia. You talk a little bit about it. If we talk again tomorrow, once the communique is out, what would you predict to be perhaps the best hope, the best takeaway for Ukraine from these 2 days?
Oh, this is a difficult question. I suppose that there are countries who will step forward and say they're willing to mediate for the return of children and political prisoners. Already there have been successful mediation efforts, in particular by the United Arab Emirates, getting large numbers of Russian and Ukrainian prisoners swapped and returned. In terms of the nuclear power plants, I mean, something that's been mooted at some point has been the possibility of sending blue helmets in to protect them. But I don't know if that's likely to come out of this meeting. I'm afraid I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with tomorrow as much as you are.
Really good to talk to you as always. Gulliver Cragg, our correspondent in Kyiv.